joining Emory University today. For this session, we will get started momentarily. Thank you so much for joining Emory University. We will start our session momentarily. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining Emory University for this session. We will get started momentarily. Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. Regardless of where you're visiting us from, we hope that you're having a wonderful morning, a wonderful afternoon, or a wonderful evening. It really means a lot to us that you are choosing to spend your valued time after we are certain you have been on technology, whether it's to get your day started or wrapping up your day. And so we appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us in this particular session, where we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Emory University Scholars Program. This is a very important topic for us and a timely topic for us. And we're really excited to be here to address some of the wonderful questions that have been pre-submitted by so many of you for our distinguished guest and panelists today. And for those of you that are joining us, I do like to always start by first saying that amongst all of you, there are literally 39 different countries represented and almost every single state in the U.S. represented in our session today. So that is why we have started with the early morning to late evening welcomes. We're very excited to have you. My name is Giselle Martin. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Talent in the Office of Undergraduate Admission. And we are here today with some wonderful friends and colleagues from the Woodruff Scholars Program Office, as well as the Goizueta Scholars Program Office, and distinguished scholars in each of those programs from all walks of experiences, so the student perspective. With that, I would like to go ahead and have our program scholars heads actually introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll be hearing a little bit more about them shortly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Margot from Emory College.
Hi, my name is Margot Cowton. I direct the Emory College Woodruff Scholars Program on the Atlanta campus. I'm really excited to share some things about our program with you tonight.
Great, and Valerie?
My name is Valerie Molyneux. I'm an Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at Oxford College, and one of my favorite job responsibilities is working with the Oxford College Woodruff Scholars Program, which I will also get to tell you about later this evening.
Perfect, thank you. And Libby?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Libby Agnor, and I am the Associate Dean for the Undergraduate Program at the Goizueta Business School, and I oversee the Goizueta Scholars Program. My goal tonight is to help you learn to pronounce Goizueta, and we'll do a tutorial on that later. So.
Excellent. We got some good tips coming your way, and that's what we hope that this session is really going to be about. We hope that we will share some good information about the application process, the admission process. Many of you are probably starting to write your essays and select which colleges you're going to apply to and what special programs you're going to be considering. And so we hope that our panelists today will help you understand the nuances and, quite frankly, what makes Emory University distinct, and specifically, what is the Woodruff Goizueta legacy at Emory? And we'll start with that admissions overview. We'll head it over to our panelists to talk about those distinct factors in their respective programs, and then we'll cap it off with some of your great questions that our current Emory University Scholar students will actually address. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share with you a little bit of Emory overall. So first and foremost, for those of you that have not had the opportunity to visit campus, one of the beautiful things about Emory University is that we are at residential campus, and we are 15 minutes or about 45 minutes away from the Atlanta downtown, uptown, and midtown area, depending on whether you are on the Emory College, Goizueta, Atlanta campus that also houses our nursing program, as well as if you are in the Oxford campus, which is about 45 minutes east of the city. So this is a good kind of framework for where we are in the beautiful fall. And for those of you that So with that, let's go ahead and start with the application process. So a couple of different things. One is the nice thing about being in the application process for Emory University. If you're thinking about applying for merit-based scholarships through the Scholars Program Office, the only thing that you need to do is literally apply by the November 15th deadline. There is no additional application that you need to submit. You just need to bring your very best to the application that you are putting together already. So we'll talk a little tiny bit about what that application looks like in just a second. There are, like we mentioned, 3 programs, really 2 when you break it down, but 2 distinctive campuses, right? The Woodruff Scholars Program is housed at Emory College as well as Oxford College, and the Goizueta Business Scholars Program is housed, of course, in the business school. Libby will talk a little bit more about that. When you apply for consideration into these programs, the only thing that you need to do is literally select one question that says, would you like to be considered for the Emory University Scholars Program? It's a very tough question. It is yes or no. If you select yes, then the Office of Admissions will automatically consider you for all of our Scholars Program, in addition to merit-based programs. Some of you asked some great questions about who is this program actually available for? And quite simply, it is available for all students, regardless of where you're coming to us from, international students, domestic students, undocumented students. We are looking for talent. We are looking for talent from across the country and across the globe. And that's going to look very different in every aspect of the experiences that you bring to the table. And so let's actually talk a little bit, very high level, about what that could look like. Because as I mentioned, November 15th, right, that's the scholars deadline. But a couple of you asked, well, is there a preference if I apply early decision 1 or early decision 2 to the scholars program? And the answer is no. we actually take students from every single one of these decision plans. And I say that in all honesty because we understand that in some other universities that may look a little differently. But for the last several years, actually the bulk of our finalists actually came from the regular decision plan. Now, that means that for all of you that are in the middle of your schoolwork right now, you're actually putting together your letters of recommendations, your essay topics, and all of those pieces to your application a little bit earlier to be considered for that November 15th deadline. If you are applying for early decision 1, however, you do have to submit your application by that November 1 deadline. But just make sure that you address the yes/no question about whether you want to be considered for the Emory University Scholars Program. So those are the main things. Now, a couple of you asked the question of, all right, once I apply, then it's you sit back and you're waiting for that response. Well, the good news is this. For students that applied by the November 15th deadline, or to be considered for the Scholars Program, you will be notified by mid-February if you are a finalist for the Woodruff at Emory, Woodruff at Oxford, or the Goizueta Scholars Finalist Program. And you'll hear a little bit more about the programs in just a second. But that'll come during that mid-February timeframe. Now, these are very competitive programs. So just to put it in perspective, about over 11,000 students applied to be considered for the Scholars Programs last year. We, of course, have no idea how many students will apply for Scholars consideration this year. However, just to give you a little bit of framework, roughly about 250 to 300 students were named finalists between all 3 programs. That means that there's a lot of amazing students that applied to Emory University Scholars Program that did not hear the news that they had hoped to hear in that mid-February timeframe. However, I want you to fully rest assured that the vast majority of students that don't hear back that they are a finalist and admitted to the university in that mid-February decision release ultimately get to hear good news in the other decision plans that they have applied to. So do your absolute best and throw your hat in the ring to be considered, because what you have done absolutely matters across the board. And so let's talk very high level about the holistic process. We were just talking to our colleagues previously about how we actually review applications. And for the scholars consideration, it is all of these components that we really sit with our colleagues and discuss your application back and forth. And that is just one iteration. Most applicants will get their file reviewed in our office by roughly about 5 to 6 people at a minimum. And their application will probably be touched and read in one way, shape, or form 2 to 3 times by the time final decisions are made. So this is something that we care very, very deeply about, because for us, we're building a community of scholars and community citizens that are committed and focused on improving the human condition, regardless of what they ultimately choose in a community like Emory. One thing to note is that this year, we are, of course, in the midst of a global pandemic. And so we want you to take into considerations a couple of things that we know are top of mind for us. One is we are test optional. You will not be disadvantaged if you choose to not submit your test in our application process, even for consideration for our top scholars program. The reason why we decided to go test optional this year is because, quite frankly, our whole entire staff felt with everything that we had in us, that we did not want to propel any student anywhere around the country or the world to put themselves in harm's way from a public health perspective to take an exam for college admissions, particularly when for the last several years we have seen that it is that everyday commitment that you have to your schoolwork on a day-to-day basis that absolutely sets the tone for the commitment and the success that you will have at, academically at Emory. So just keep that in mind. Your everyday, what you're putting forth in the classroom, virtually or physically with your teachers, that goes super far. So take those hard teachers that are going to push you to go way beyond the surface, particularly if you're thinking about applying for the scholars process. Letters of recommendations, we're going to require 3. 2 from core curriculum teachers, and then 1 from your college counselor at your school. We're also going to require 2 additional supplemental essays in addition to the essays that you might submit for either the Common App, the Coalition App, or through the QuestBridge application. All students, P.S., that are applying through QuestBridge are automatically considered for the Emory University Scholars Program as well. Do your very best. Bring forth your authentic spirit. Don't be afraid to share the types of things that, you know, were maybe on your docket that you had anticipated participating in this last year that didn't happen potentially because of COVID and the pandemic and the current situation that we're in. We understand that life is different now, and we are going to be reviewing your applications and your stories with that in mind. Your story, your reality of your story matters to us tremendously. So just be honest and share what matters to you. What do you know, I always say that there's 3 things that are most important and are your most valuable assets. It is your voice, your time, and your youth. So to us, think about those 3 things. What have you done with your voice, your time, and your youth in these last either months or last couple of years to really bring forth what has meaning and purpose to you? What has been ignited and why? There's no one path in this process. And I hope that you will hear a little bit more about that as we hand it over to our wonderful guest panelists from the individual programs that we have through the Emory University Scholars Program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Woodruff Scholars Program. And if we can have Margot lead the way with talking a little bit about the Woodruff Scholars.
Thank you so much, Giselle. So yes, the Woodruff Scholars Program. Who was Robert Woodruff and why do you care? Well, Robert Woodruff, if you've done any research about Emory, he was the former president of Coca-Cola. He only spent 1 year here at Emory, but it had such an impact on him that he made a transformative gift to the university in 1979. He gave us $105 million in Coca-Cola stock, which is nearly $400 million in today's money, with the goal of enriching the university. And the president of the university at that time decided that one of the best things we could do would be to recruit students who combined passion, a strong sense of purpose, and intellectual curiosity that were going to bring the full weight of their creativity and their intellect to serving humanity and strengthening their communities and contributing to the common good. And so that is, to this day, what we look for in our scholars and what we hope to support our scholars in doing once they are here at the university. We currently have 124 scholars in the Emory College Woodruff Scholars Program. And we like to say that part of what they teach us is that there are 124 different ways that you can be a scholar. When you look at this community, what you see is a multidisciplinary group of people that includes mathematicians and poets and activists and community builders and virtuoso musicians and entrepreneurs and policy wonks and Rhodes Scholarship finalists and Truman Scholars, and people doing all kinds of really incredible things and pursuing what they love to do. To support you in those things when you are here at Emory, you receive a variety of benefits through the program that are aimed at doing three core things. They aim to develop these three abilities that we think are important to help you make an impact, no matter what you want to do professionally. Those are developing and telling your story, building your intellectual and social network, and contributing to the common good. So we will have all of our scholars go through scholar advising sessions where you reflect on who you are now and who you want to be. This is a 4-year conversation about your evolution and development. We put you in touch with other scholars and alumni and faculty across campus so that you can build a network that supports your broadest vision for yourself and the impact that you want to have in the world. We also have a mentoring program that helps to support your feeling of being welcomed into that community. And then we have a series of events throughout the year that help scholars strive for community impact. We are interested not just in service, but in sustained impact that you can have in your communities. And we have a series of programs, including our Scholarship and Service Summer Program, which is a residential nonprofit internship program. It's very popular that help our scholars to do that. We also offer priority class registration, so you know that you'll be able to craft a schedule of appropriate challenge that aligns with your interests, and on-campus priority on-campus housing selection. And of course, we also provide funding for summer opportunities, and that includes study abroad, our global internship programs, research experiences, unpaid internship experiences. Nearly every summer, our scholars receive funding to pursue something that is helping them to advance toward their goals. So I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Valerie, to talk about the Oxford Woodruff Scholars, who also come, they kind of have the best of both worlds, excuse me. They get to start at Oxford and then join us on the Atlanta campus and enjoy both of those communities. And that's what I'd like to end with, the sense that what makes the Scholars Program so remarkable is not just the opportunities that it affords you, but the community in which you do them, which is really special. It's a community of shared passion and purpose, and it's incredibly diverse, and we're really excited to meet the next cohort of scholars who will join us. Valerie?
Thank you, Margot. That was a great kickoff. I'm going to tell everybody on this, you're probably nervous applying to college, and I'm a little nervous speaking to you. It's a big group, so I'm going to do my best. Okay, so hello and greetings also from the 11 Woodruff Scholars at Oxford College. That is accurate almost to the decimal point for the percentage of our population we represent in comparison to Emory College, and the fact that students are with us for only 2 years before they go on to amazing new things on the Atlanta campus. Just like Robert Woodruff, all of our Oxford Woodruff Scholars start in Oxford, Georgia. We focus 3 areas for our programming. Academics, as you might imagine, professional, and if you're wondering what that is for the first 2 years of college that students spend at Oxford, that is things like life design, looking at your ikigai, which is loosely translated from the Japanese as your reason for being. And parents, if you're on the call, there's an order. It's passion, mission, vocation, and then profession. That's right? They ideally all align at the end, but sometimes it can take a while for students as high achieving as you students on this call who are good at so many things to figure out where to pour that energy and that intention. And so we focus in all of our scholar programs across the schools on helping students to find where those places are. And the third we focus on as well, impact. We count your home community always, and then the Oxford and Emory communities, and then the broader world. We have things we do like an annual retreat. We talk a lot at Oxford because it's the first 2 years that we get to focus on so specifically about the specific needs and challenges of high achieving students. And that's what Margot was saying, that you get that community of other scholars. Most of our scholars are a little bit quiet, like Woodruff was. He was known as Mr. Anonymous, about their status because they're busy getting things done. They're not talking and promoting themselves. They're just doing what is good for the world. And so it's really special for our scholars to be together with others who have that same focus. And we also bridge to Atlanta. So as Margot said, our scholars get to do both programs in the second year. If you're wondering what is it that makes some students get all the way through the process and come here as scholars, get out your pens. Here's the secret. It is that our scholars really, on all of our programs, they take academic risks. And that is what, actually, the Woodruff Scholars Program bridges across all 9 colleges and schools of Emory University. And you'll hear students say across the undergraduate and graduate programs that the scholarship lets them take risks because they've got funding and energy and support covered, kind of like in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they can move toward the optimization pieces to actualize those pieces while they're scholars. And that's probably one of the greatest things about working with scholars is you never know what one of them is going to come up with to challenge you to do, to challenge their peers to do, to change our community. And I would also say authentic self is really important, which is a hard thing to think about when you're 18 or 17 or 19. But let's be honest, Mr. Woodruff did not spend a long time at Oxford College because his authentic self was not the classical college curriculum of early 20th century Oxford, Emory College, right? He had other strengths and he went on to achieve them. And so we don't need you to be perfect. When Margot said creativity, we don't mean just arts. We mean people have a new way of looking at things, right? We want students who have unselfish character. When Mr. Woodruff gave the money in 1979, it was from his foundation. Super nerdy trivia. It's named after Ernest and Emily Woodruff. Those are Robert Woodruff's parents, not himself. That's who he named his foundation after, and that's the kind of scholar we want. Now, that doesn't mean you don't care about yourself. My scholars and I recently got together, masked and distanced, to do pumpkin carving on our beautiful campus. And there was gentle jostling for the last La Colombe draft coffee, because scholars need caffeine, just like everyone else. But it does mean that, like, the basic animating principle of our scholars is thinking about how they can move things forward for others in such a positive and intentional way. That's where that vigor or drive you'll hear about across our scholars programs comes from. And it bridges across Woodruff and Mr. Goizueta, as the business school is named for. They share this kind of let's do it, but quietly. And to that point, they also focus on things like communication, but both ways. It'll be interesting to see when our scholars get on the stage later, that they will be listening to you and your questions in addition to speaking on a panel, because that's who our scholars are. So I thank you for spending some time with me tonight, and I'm going to send it back to Giselle, who I think will introduce Libby.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Margot. And I think it's so appropriate to lead with the fact that Emory University as a whole is about taking those risks. It is about asking those bold questions, and be careful what you ask for. The other beauty in what was just shared is that the relationship between Robert Woodruff and Roberto Goizueta is something that is near and dear to the reality of their own kinship and relationship and how they cared for each other to take big risks in business. So with that, I will turn it over to Libby in the business school.
Thanks so much, Giselle. So I am going to talk a little bit about our program. I do want to just echo what's already been said and tell you that the Goizueta Business School has been named for Roberto Goizueta, who was the chairman and CEO of Coca-Cola. If you are someone who is interested in business or interested in history, he did take it from a $5 billion company to 150 in his time. His shareholders were very happy with that result. But I think the thing that we love so much about being named for Roberto Goizueta is the fact that he was someone who really valued education. He came from Cuba. He had been a student at Yale, had gone back to Cuba to become a chemist in the Coca-Cola bottling plant there. And I think one of the things that is so remarkable about his story is that when he came to the United States, he said he had his job with the Coca-Cola company and he had his degree. And I think those two things served him very well. So our program is rooted in the same principles that the Woodruff Scholars Program is rooted. We want students who are engaged, who are dynamic. We want you to be excited about business. That is something we hope will come through in your application. And we don't mean that you have to have started a business, although it's great if you have. That's wonderful. We don't mean that you have to have figured out how to, work the stock market to your advantage from the age of 2. We really just want you to have an intellectual curiosity about business. I think that you will find, looking at Goizueta and Emory, it is a really unique program. Students start as Goizueta scholars into Emory College. Even though they are admitted to the business school from the minute they walk onto campus, they're guaranteed admission. They just have to fulfill a few prerequisites. But they start with the same liberal arts background that everyone else at Emory starts with. And that's because that foundation is going to help you to think, across multiple disciplines. It's really going to help you tie the pieces together. When you get in deeper into your business school curriculum, you'll be able to draw on that liberal arts foundation and then also potentially grow both in the business understanding and also to continue to do, intellectual pursuits in the liberal arts. I do think it's interesting that I would say last year we graduated over 20% of our graduating class, not scholars, just graduating class, had a second major in Emory College. And I think that's very telling about students at Emory in general, and particularly students at the business school in the Goizueta Scholars Program. I would say one of the best parts about our program is our Scholars Seminar. We are going to put you into a program with other scholars who are first, second, third, and fourth year students in the Scholars Program. You are all going to learn together in the fall of your first year, and every year after that, one of our most beloved faculty members teaches the class, and every year she picks a different engaging topic. This year, she actually partnered with a program on campus that was connecting faculty to artists, and they are doing a collaborative art project in relation to the Goizueta Scholars Seminar. So I think that for a business school, we certainly have rooted ourselves in the liberal arts, and that is to the advantage of our students and to the advantage of the employers who go on to employ our students. So thinking about this program, I would say you really want to be someone who keeps your doors open. I think that is one of the best parts about an undergraduate education in business anyway, is that it gives you a wide range of flexibility and opportunity. And I think that our business school scholars, our Goizueta scholars, come thinking that there are a lot of doors open to them and they want to explore as many different avenues as possible. It is not the case that all of our scholars do the same thing. They actually do widely different things. Some of them are in a cappella groups on campus. Some of them are, our RAs, resident advisors. Some of them come and start clubs and organizations related to business. Some of them come and start clubs and organizations that have nothing to do with business. But I do think they all have one thing in common, and it's it's a knowledge that when they arrive on campus, there's an expectation. There's an expectation that they are going to engage, that they are going to take on leadership roles, and it continues on even after they graduate. So there's an expectation of our alumni that they are going to be mentors for our current scholars. There's an expectation that they're going to give back in all sorts of ways to our program, and in fact they do. I sent out an update to our scholars alumni a couple of weeks ago, and I said, here's a link to put some time on my calendar. And I have had in the last 2 weeks over 12 meetings with scholar alumni who just were like, hey, just want to catch up, just want to catch up. And to me, that's extraordinary. These are people with incredibly successful, demanding careers. They do not need to put time on my calendar to keep their days full. But I think that sense of connection is one thing that really shines through. And to a person, every single one of those very successful business people said, I would love to be a mentor for a current Goizueta scholar. So we have all of the same types of perks that come with the Woodruff Scholars Program as well. That includes priority registration and priority housing. Our scholarships do include anywhere from full to half tuition to full tuition, and we do also fund summer opportunities. In the case of our Goizueta scholars, it is frequently study abroad, but not always. So I think those are all things that make our program really unique and special, but the real thing that does it is our students. And that's why I'm so excited that you're going to have a chance to talk with some of the, with a Goizueta scholar as well as the Woodruff scholars who are here tonight with us. So thank you for your time. And again, I hope to answer as many questions as we can tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for Libby. So now that the secrets are out, right? Emory is about taking risks and opening doors. And that's the way you need to think through your creativity and how you approach these next couple of months, which are really exciting. So with that, I hope that for our panelists, if I could actually ask you a couple of questions that came in from the students that are attending tonight. So for Valerie, Margot, and Libby, this one is for you. Libby, you talked a little bit about priority registration. You just mentioned that. One of the questions that came from Rio, all the way from Italy, buongiorno, is, does Emory scholars, do they live in separate housing?
So I can start off with this and tell you that while our Goizueta scholars become very close friends, and we have had multiple Goizueta scholars decide to room together out of choice, there is no one lodging place for scholars. They are dispersed amongst the housing on campus, and I think that is a fantastic way to get to know all kinds of people. You will get to know your scholars community. They will be people that are in your life and that you are collaborating with. So having the chance to live with people from all over the university, I think is to the benefit of our program.
Absolutely. I actually just had a conversation with some of our scholars last week where we were talking about why scholars don't have an exclusive residence hall. And it was, they actually said much of what Libby just said, that, it's just such a pleasure to be linked with people across campus. And in the end, many of them do end up living with other scholars that they form their own bonds with. And at the same time, we make sure that that network outside of the scholars program is strong, that it's a porous community, not an enclosed one.
Wonderful, thank you. So our next question actually for the panelists as well is from Ashley from Singapore. And she asked, could each of you give an example of a specifically impressive or important contribution made by a Woodruff scholar or a Goizueta scholar in the Emory or the Greater Atlanta community or beyond?
I will start us off. One of the people who comes to mind immediately, because of our current historical moment, is Elizabeth Preligar, who is a lawyer and who served as a clerk for Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Elena Kagan and Merrick Garland, and has said some really moving things about Ginsburg and the impact that she had. More locally, Doug Shipman was the founding CEO of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, which is based here in Atlanta, and then he went on to lead the Woodruff Arts Center. We could also talk about Laura Rivera Simonson, who is the director of the Immigrant Rights Project for the Southern Poverty Law Center. There are folks who are doing really exciting work, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention our current scholars, many of whom have also taken initiative while they are still in school. So we just recently had 2 scholars start a publishing company to help distribute informational literature to help children feel more comfortable with medical treatment. And, you know, they're juniors here at Emory. So you don't have to be an alum to start making an impact.
That is so true, Margot, because I was just thinking of one of our Goizueta scholars who, when he was a Goizueta scholar, Brandon Walker, founded an organization at Goizueta called the Emory Impact Investing Group, and they are a group that specifically funds in the Atlanta area entrepreneurs. They their goal is to provide microloans to local entrepreneurs, and I think you're going to hear a little bit more about that from Chris, our Goizueta scholar, who's representing us tonight, because he is the CEO of that organization. So what's fantastic about it is a Goizueta scholar started it years ago. It's been making an impact in the Goizueta community, and Goizueta scholars are still involved with it today. So.
I'll give an example. I've only been in my role for 2 years, so I don't have many alumni on my roster, but I will say that one of the unique things about the Emory Scholars Program is that we also grant one full ride Woodruff tuition scholarship at Oxford College midstream, and Emory College also grants a few in medias res. And one of the finalists for that last year had 2 initiatives that were really strong. One was co-leadership of our sexual assault prevention group on campus. And I say that to say to all of you who are students right now, that's a manageable student-sized project, right? That is something you don't have to change the world, but it will, and it does, for the students who are affected by their educational outreach and their support. She is also a student who successfully lobbied our student government to stop bringing petting zoos to campus on behalf of animal rights and welfare. And she is a student who is interested in a political career. So this is hopefully giving you an idea of what happens in the microcosm of college, and could even be happening for you right now in high school or your gap year, that can grow into what our alumni are able to do later.
I love it. I feel so inspired. That's fantastic. Excellent. Well, this is a wonderful segue to hear directly from our current scholar community. We have 3 students that are with us today representing each of the scholar programs from Emory College, Oxford College, and the Goizueta Business School. And so I would love to have the students introduce themselves. And if you wouldn't actually mind sharing your hometown, high school, which scholar program you're currently a part of, and maybe what your intended area or current area of study, consideration, pondering is at the university. And Chris, let's go ahead and start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Giselle. And honestly, welcome everyone. I'm so happy to be able to speak with you all today. My name is Chris Cusimonaguro, and I'm originally from Castro Valley, California. So that's just in a suburb by the Bay Area. And now I'm studying at Emory University as a junior, business and sociology. So I am one of the double majors, the many double majors at the business school, studying something both in business but also in the college. And it has been a phenomenal experience being able to dabble in both, because as Libby said earlier, I get to be involved in many both socially impactful but business-related activities on campus, and plan to do so as well in my future.
Fantastic. Thank you for being with us today. And Shreya.
Hi everyone, my name is Shreya Pavaraju and I'm a fourth year student at Emory College, part of the Emory Woodruff Scholars Program. I'm from Duluth, Georgia, which is about 40 minutes away from the Atlanta campus and a place that many students do like to go on the weekends. I'm currently studying political science and creative writing with special concentrations in international relations and poetry, but more broadly I've also had the chance to study journalism and storytelling through my extracurricular experiences. Right now, I'm hoping to go to graduate school to further study international development and violence against women in different program areas. And so, in the true Emory spirit of liberal arts, I really had a chance to study a little bit of everything, and I really hope that you all get to as well.
Great, thank you so much. And Hannah.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Morrison. I'm a second year student in the Oxford College Woodruff Scholars Program. I'm from Old Lyme, Connecticut, which is a small town in Connecticut, and I went to Old Lyme High School. And I'm pursuing a double major, planning to pursue a double major in PPL, which is Philosophy, Politics, and Law, as well as Theater Studies.
Well, I think you've already heard a theme here that absolutely resonated across each of the scholars, and that is that the left brain speaks to the right brain with equal opportunity and excitement. So wonderful. So we had some great questions that came through for all of you. So let's start with the one question that actually came through from a couple of different students, and that is, what does it mean to be an Emory University scholar? And Hannah, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think that it's really a lot about the community that you have when you're in the scholars program at Emory. You have so many, not only the other scholars in your sort of cohort of whichever scholars program you're a part of, but you also have such an incredible network of resources available to you, of whether it's professors or faculty or alumni that are constantly reaching out to you saying, hey, how can I help you to be successful? How can I help you find what you need in order to do what you're passionate about and do what you care about doing? And it's never about like a pressure of, oh, you need to do this for Emory and for us, but it's about what do you want to contribute to the world and how can we help you achieve that? And so that's been my experience with the Scholars Program.
Yeah, to kind of just add on to that, I think Hannah kind of hit it spot on. But I think also another thing that what it means to be a scholar is, Emory has a motto of like the wise heart seeks knowledge, and I truly believe that the scholars community, whether it's the Woodruff scholars or Goizueta scholars, they really exemplify what it means to kind of live by that motto and represent what intellectual curiosity is. So I'm good friends with many Goizueta scholars as well as Woodruff scholars as well. So everyone I know that's part of that community is always pushing me on my why. And I think that's a super big thing within Emory, but specifically within the scholars community too, of just why are you in college? Why are you learning the things you're learning? And what do you want to contribute going into your future? And so I think those hard-hitting questions about really digging deep and to understand a little bit more about what you're passionate about, not just in terms of like a good career, but your contribution to the world, I think is so important. And definitely something I found so prevalent within the alumni scholars that I've talked to and the freshmen that I've just been getting to know.
Yeah, just to expand upon that a little bit more, I think Emory students definitely do embrace like the culture of the liberal arts. I entered as like a pre-law student and I like changed like so many different times, but that's because every time I took a new course, I ended up becoming interested in like something different. And I think that's something that a lot of Emory scholars especially like to do, is to take courses that are maybe not in their particular field of interest, but when they realize they do have a passion for it, eventually they kind of add it to their ever-growing and ever-changing story of what it means to be an Emory student. And so I think one of the most important things about being an Emory scholar is just embracing like the liberal arts, but also I think it also means that a lot of different Emory scholars are able to engage in conversations across a broad variety of topics, but that they also like develop their passions and their own field of interest, and we kind of get to see how everyone is really interested in very similar things, but they all kind of approach them from different angles, and that's something I really enjoy about the program.
Very good, thank you. Nikhil from the United Kingdom asked about research opportunities for scholars. Can you all talk a little bit about some of the research opportunities that you've been exposed to so far, and how have you engaged in research? How did it come to you? And Treya, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things about Emory is that there's just so many different types of research opportunities. I remember being a freshman and just being a little like overwhelmed, I guess, in a sense, about all of the different opportunities there were, but then getting to really enjoy and process each one of them as the years continued and getting to figure out what each one was about. So currently I'm a part of a couple of different research programs, including the HALA Institute for Global Research, where students can get funding to go to different organizations or different countries around the world to study. And so this summer I was supposed to go to Cambridge University to study violence against women. Unfortunately, that fell through because of COVID. But I think that community in particular focuses on studying the different connections across different universities and different schools and how we can cultivate a better sense of academic and literature and how we can kind of put together this universal story of what it means to be a good academic. And I think that's something I really value. Another way you can get involved in research is also just by approaching professors. You'd be surprised at like the number of professors that just have really cool projects on this campus. And one of the things I used to do as like a freshman or like as a sophomore was to go ask professors like what they're currently studying, and it eventually led to a job offer, which was helpful for me now as I'm trying to graduate. And so just be bold and ask, and you'll be surprised at what you can find.
Yeah, just to expand upon that a little bit more as well. I think really leveraging just the extensive network of advisors, professors who really want to get to know us as scholars has also been really wonderful. At least from my experience, being able to talk to people about my own passions and interests, especially advisors, have given me ways to find different research opportunities, and so that has been extremely wonderful. Within sociology, I actually do sociological research with my actually direct advisor, and so that within the sociology department, so that has also been just a really wonderful way to get connected with more of the liberal arts component of being a scholar at Emory.
Yeah, I think one of the common attributes of all of the professors that I've had the chance to take classes with so far at Oxford and at Emory is that they're all just so passionate about whatever their area of expertise is. And so if you go to their office hours and you ask them about what are you doing research in or what are your interests in this field, they're beyond excited to talk to you about it, and they'll likely invite you to be a part of their research. And so that's actually what happened for me. I did not really anticipate doing research given that I was interested in philosophy and performing arts. I didn't really foresee a research thing in that when I was first coming into college. And I'm now doing research in the philosophy of music with my professor that I took last semester because he reached out to me and just thought that this would be something that I was interested in because he knew me personally and he knew my interests. And so part of the benefit of having that close relationship with your professors is that they'll know what you'll be interested in and they'll make the effort to reach out to you and invite you to work with them, which has been really great.
Thank you. I always say, and I hear this I've been at Emory now for about 9 years, and I hear this from students all the time, and Hannah and Chris and Treya, you just literally hit the nose on the head. There's something about the way Emory faculty, staff, and leadership ask questions of students that they get to the heart of the things that the students don't know they don't know yet, and kind of find that path to lead them in that direction of discovery. And that's really something special. So I love that you all have experienced that. Next question came from, again, a couple of different students. And this was a fascinating question because it actually came from almost every corner of the country as well as the globe. And that is, can you share a little bit about the internships or special opportunities that you've been exposed to as a scholar? And now we understand that humility is part of who we are as an institution, but I am going to ask each of the students to just put that aside for just a second so that so our viewers can hear a little bit about some of the things that you've been exposed to and care deeply about. Hannah, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure. I haven't yet done an actual internship at Emory in my first and second years, but I am really involved in the club culture at Oxford and just sort of being involved in leadership positions in that respect. And I know there are also a lot of internship opportunities that I'm looking into for applying for this coming summer. And I've been getting a lot of support from the Scholars Program as a whole of just people providing the resources for which internships would be most of interest to me and which ones are ones that I should be applying for. So that's something that's coming up for me.
Chris, do you want to go ahead next?
Yeah, definitely. I think trying to think of the way to best answer because there's so many resources, but I think the best way is probably one from a very like inside of Emory perspective and one also for like the future and the opportunities I've been given from that side. So we think within Emory, the opportunities I've been really given are the moment that you kind of set foot on campus, the network and the resources that you're given kind of set you up to also know that you are believed in and that you have a lot of people who are believing in you. I think that's one of the most valuable things. So being able to approach clubs, being able to approach different opportunities, things that you've never experienced before. For example, I ended up trying out for like a dance club, for example, and that was just entirely random for me, but definitely an experience that I only did because I knew people had so much faith in me just coming into college, and that was definitely unique. As kind of my career at Emory has progressed and throughout the years, the scholars community has definitely supported to me as well. And it's now I actually also am involved in, again, many of the business and social impact clubs that I'm involved in on campus. So one of those, probably the biggest ones that I'm part of is being the chief executive officer of the Emory Impact Investing Group, which is an organization that serves the microbusiness community in Atlanta, specifically those that have been hardest hit by COVID, and being able to provide them loans between $5,000 to $10,000 to really help during this time, but also just to fight the inequality that exists due to redlining and just a lot of different inequalities that exist in those areas. And so that has been a powerful opportunity to me because it allowed me to get involved in an organization and a mission that was actually also started and founded by Brandon Walker, who was a Goizueta scholar in the past, and that connection to him, being able to talk to him as a former founder and chief executive officer of this organization was unique and amazing. And as we went through COVID, having to kind of struggle as we figured out what this organization could really bring to the community was one of the most wonderful things that we did, because we ended up raising $50,000 extra. So now we have $180,000, which equates to around 18 loans that we could provide, 18 to honestly 36 loans that we could provide to entrepreneurs, which I think is a phenomenal way that we've been trying to support and impact the Atlanta community. And so I've been really grateful for that within Emory and can't wait to see what I continue to do with my next 2 years. And outside of Emory, going into my future as well, I think I found so much support from individuals, alumni who have poured into me, kind of like what Hannah said as well. My first summer, I ended up doing a study abroad in Spain, and with the Goizueta scholars kind of their funding. And for my second year, so sophomore year summer, so this past summer, my initial internship got canceled, so I ended up getting connected with the Goizueta scholar friend who ended up connecting me to a nonprofit consulting organization. And I was able to have a virtual internship where I was able to really help an organization called Blessings in a Backpack that has 16,000 volunteers, like working with 82,000 kids across the United States, really trying to give them food over the weekend. And for me, like, those impactful moments aren't, like, those to me are unique. And it was entirely because of the fact that I made so many amazing friends, mentors who were believing in me and supporting in me. And I think that truly speaks to the truth and the resources and the opportunities that are given from this program.
just to kind of elaborate about like the different types of programs that the Emory Scholars kind of offers. In addition to what Bokan and Chris already mentioned, I really do think, yeah, the Alumni Network has been something that's been very valuable to me, but also the types of different resources and funding that the programs offer. I remember my actually, the summer after my sophomore year, I wanted to work for the Institute for Human Rights, which is on Emory's campus, and it's an organization that does a lot of interdisciplinary research, and one of the ways that I was able to work with them was through a research grant that the Scholars Program provided me, and so it was a way to kind of design a project and kind of study more what I was passionate about through the support of the program. But through the program also, I think I was really able to own my career interests and also my future interests by talking with people who were pursuing the same line of work that I wanted to be doing in the future. One of the ways that happened was that I had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. twice. That only happened once because of COVID, but the opportunity was still there, I think, and I was able to reach out to a lot of the people in the city that I'm hoping to plan to move to, and so I think that was really helpful. In that way, I was able to meet a lot of different alumni who are working in different fields. I met someone named Gina Trujillo, who's doing a lot of work with violence against women, and she was also a graduate of the program. I was also able to meet policymakers who are working on the legislation that I'm really passionate about. And so I think the network is something that is very valuable. And actually, I was talking earlier today with just about how you could reach out to different alumni for jobs in the future, or about the different types of graduate schools that they've gone to. And so I think knowing that you kind of have a family everywhere, no matter where you go, is something that's very valuable.
That is so true. Thank you so much. The Emory family is over 150,000 alums strong, literally worldwide, and they show up. I mean, when we call it the Emory family, it really is something that you feel and that you see in action, as you just heard from our students. So thank you so much for that. Last and certainly not least is a question that was on the minds of several of the students that submitted their questions, and I can only imagine that as high school students currently, you are trying to you're probably trying to decide where you're going to apply, where to tell your story, and you will probably each have lots of different options to consider. And so the question for the current Emory scholars and Goizueta scholars is, why did you choose Emory? You probably had a lot of choices, other wonderful institutions that you had to consider. Why did you say yes to Emory?
I guess I can begin. So I think the reason for me is it's a hard question. Thinking about why I chose Emory kind of takes me back to a couple years again. And I think the main reason for me was coming from California, which is, again, very far away in terms of distance. It was pretty far from me, and I applied to mostly in-state schools, some out-of-state as well. But really thinking, I think, for me about where Emory was located and it being so close to Atlanta, and just the diversity of people that were going to be inside, but also the diversity of things that I was able to learn. I really loved the emphasis that if I were to go into business, I wouldn't be siloed into kind of this very money-making mentality where the only thing I cared about specifically was only about financial return. And I think for me that Emory provided that huge opportunity to not just dabble in business and pursue something that I was really curious about, but also explore so many other different disciplines. And I had the opportunity of doing that freshman, sophomore year, dabbling in sociology, political science, philosophy, and touching upon so many subjects because of the first years kind of in the college itself and being able to study more of those liberal arts, different subjects. And so I think that for me was the main draw. It took me out of my California bubble, which is all about golden sunshine and rolling hills, although right now it's not good because there's fires. So that's that. But just in general, for me, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. And I think Emory was that place that was able to take me there. And I'm happy to say 3 years down the line now, I think I can very much say that it's true. And that's why I'm actually on campus here as a resident advisor right now, helping encourage other first years at the moment to also find their passions on this campus too.
To expand, I think the thing that I love about Emory the most is how intimate it really is, and the culture of Emory is, but also the culture of mentorship. I really remember like the first day of school at Emory. I think this is something that kind of defines most of my Emory experience. Was I sat down in my freshman seminar course, which was about 12 students big, which is like the average class size of a lot of different Emory classes, anywhere from 12 to 30 students, so very small, besides the intros. And so I sat down in my class, lost and confused. And as our professor walked in, she put her phone number on the whiteboard, and she was like, if you ever have like any issues, like please feel free to call me. Like it doesn't matter what time. Like I'm also here to be like your mentor and help you get through Emory. And I think that's the type of relationship that I've formed with a lot of different professors here, is the ability to kind of call them and like talk to them about like different questions or concerns I'm having. I think one way that Emory really does a good job about this too is that they try to give you like kind of an advisor for each one of your majors, because a lot of students do end up double majoring, but also you have like a first year advisor and a lot of different opportunities for mentorship throughout different clubs and organizations. And so the fact that there really is this culture of making sure that students are prepared to conquer and get through like the rest of the college experience is something that I find very valuable and something very, very intimate about Emory's culture in particular.
Yeah, kind of building on what Shreya and Chris have already said. Another thing that really appealed to me about Emory was the focus on liberal arts. When I was graduating high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do for like a major or anything. I had a lot of interests and they were very all over the place. And I'm still interested in a lot of the same things. But I've had the chance to, take classes in a lot of different subjects without feeling like, oh, well, I'm majoring in this, so I have to take all classes in that. And a lot of that, specifically at Oxford, you have a discovery seminar that you take your first semester freshman year that is, the entire purpose of it is to take an exploratory class in something that you might not otherwise take a course in. And I think not only at Oxford, but at Emory as a whole, there's a really good focus on allowing you to explore and allowing you to be curious and encouraging you to be curious intellectually. And additionally, like Shreya said, there's just so much support at Emory from the professors and from your peers. I remember when I was coming to tour Oxford my second time, before I came, I emailed one of the admissions officers, and then she connected me with some professors in subjects that I was interested in. And so when I came to campus, I was able to shadow a psychology class, and then I met with the music professor, and that attitude of the professors of just being excited and open to connecting with you and inviting you into their sort of circle of knowledge and of experience is just always the case at Emory. Everyone wants to share what they're passionate about with you, which I just adore.
Oh, thank you very much to all of you for sharing your stories and as always, doing it with such openness and transparency. That is definitely at the core of who we are as an institution. I have to say, I typically like to just take some quick little notes of things that just really inspire me or really resonate when we're in the middle of these presentations. And as we wrap up and we say thank you to our students, Shreya, Hannah, Chris, thank you so much for being with us today, as well as to Valerie, Libby, and Margot. We are so thankful for what you all contribute to the Emory community, and some of the things that each of you brought to light today was that Emory is a place that has creativity without boundaries. If you are thinking about, applying as a scholar, then it sounds to me like some of these scholars are really going to push you to think about your why. I thought that was such a powerful statement to really think about. That why are you spending this time here? What does that mean to you? Take that time to really reflect, digest, and actually discover your own why. Because it is when you do that search internally that you can actually search for the community that you want to contribute to and be a part of. To Chris and Libby and actually so many of you, it has become so clear that business can have humanity and can be humane. And that is still something that is profitable in our society. So thank you for that. And all of you really resonated with this theme of culture of mentorship. And I have heard so many times faculty talk about students at Emory as partners. And as a Research One institution, I've been in higher education for a long time, and I can tell you that is actually rare to find faculty that think of students as partners. So I hope that you got a good sense of what the Emory University community of scholars is all about, what the Woodruff and Goizueta legacies are about. We hope that this session will lead you to explore the university and our communities beyond the surface of just the websites. We encourage you to log in to apply.emory.edu/visits to see all the different opportunities that you can have to hear from other students, other faculty, and other staff members about the process. And we wish you all to be well, stay safe, and take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and know that your everyday actions, what you do every single day at home with your own families, mean more today than ever. And so be kind, do good. We wish you well. Take care. Bye, everybody.